Hey guys and girls, hope you're all well. Bored now, back with you. On this video I'm going to be reviewing episode 2 of HBO's The Last of Us. The episode is called Infected, and full spoilers from the start of the review as always. And another fantastic episode. This continues to impress, it continues to be potentially one of the greatest shows of the year. I'll be very surprised if it doesn't end up being that. It builds on the characters really well in this episode. It builds on the mythology in an impressive way. Like, we really get a bit more into the meat of the infection and the different almost variants of it. Like, some of the stuff hinted at in this does suggest that there's different types of the infection, variants is the best word I can think of, and different kinds of effects it has on people. So we really build up the three main characters in this, and there is a tremendous twist at the end of the episode, a really great gut punch. But it also gets more into the survival horror aspect, which I'm guessing is very similar to the games. And that leads to a lot of fun, where you just get a straightforward survival thing, but with so much invested in it, so much great tension, and so much tying up, riding on the characters and their stakes. But really interesting opening to the episode, where we start in Jakarta in 2003, and we see like a scientist being arrested by the authorities. And she's an expert in the fungus and the virus. So she's apprehended and taken to like a facility, and they want her to examine a body, and it's a body of a woman who was infected, and a typically normal woman went crazy and became violent, and she was shot. But we also see that she was bit by another human. So they asked the scientist to examine her, and the scientists, and what we learn is that they brought her there because they want a vaccine from her. That they decided they need a vaccine, and she seems like the only person who can develop it. And this is a very like intriguing aspect of what they're doing in the show, compared with the real situation, the COVID situation we've been through the last few years, where there was obviously a vaccine developed. But in this case, for the stakes of the drama and the story, there is no vaccine, or there hasn't been up to a point, and I don't really know exactly where the story's going, but that could be something that's built to it. Now it's hinted later in the episode, and that's why Ellie's so important. Then she's the key to them getting a vaccine. So that's another nice little reveal and detail, and definitely something they can play with. But what's very striking about the scenes at the start with this doctor, this scientist, is that she tells them flat out there's no way it's not going to work, that there's no vaccine that can be used on this. And there's a nice little turn with her character where, like, the army guy is just like, well, what do we do then? And she says, and she takes a pause and she gets emotional because she wants to be with her family. She's sort of given up hope, and she's almost like resigned to the fact that the virus has won and this is sort of it. So she suggests that they bomb everyone, they bomb the cities. And it's a really surprising turn from the character, because throughout the opening scenes she's come across as a very pragmatic person, but also a person who cares about humanity and is really a sympathetic figure. Like, she's been taken away against her will by the army and things like that. So from the start she's quite sympathetic, and it's not that she becomes unsympathetic, I think, far from it, but it's just a nice little surprise turn to her than she actually comes out with bomb the cities, like bomb everyone, and then she gets emotional, says I really want to be with my family now, so like showing that maybe she's given up hope. But yeah, it's just this idea of this cruel, harsh world and what the virus has done to it, than this person who I think in theory would be someone who would always try and explore new avenues, new ideas, and be open-minded and like to explore like different sciences to try and help. It is almost given up, and this is her suggestion, and it's so extreme, but you can understand where it's coming from. So that's a really good opening to the episode, and then we pretty much follow the three main characters, Tess, Joel, and Ellie, from after that, like post sort of credits. So we pick up with them hiding away in this like bunker type place, and once again there's great attention to detail where they're like testing Ellie, and Ellie is so entertaining in this. I know this sort of character can get a little bit grating over time if she's like too sort of rebellious and like sharp tongued, but like the actress is just great and such natural, and it just feels like it's coming from this character who has had this like upbringing, and she's very like cynical and savvy, and just has this bite to her the way she delivers lines. But there's some really laugh out loud lines from her that really tap into like a dark sort of humour, which I enjoy. Like, because when she's saying to them, they're asking about, well, weren't you tested by the Melanie, I think, the Firefly leader? It's like, yeah, I was, but like the big dead giveaway was I didn't turn into a fucking monster. And even better than that line, I think, is when she's asking for a gun later, and they both say no. It's almost like a parents would in unison. They both shout back at her, no. And she's like, all right, I'll just I'll just throw a sandwich at the monsters. And there's some great laugh out loud stuff like that. But I really enjoyed the dynamic between the three in this episode. Them as her parents, her curious about this world and wanting to find out more. But there's like a good arc for all three by the end of the episode. And I think for Joel, like the end of the episode, we've reached the point where he now realises his responsibility. He now realises then he has to do the right thing and help this girl, because throughout the episode they do some good like character reversals where he's actually, because for a lot of like the first episode, Tess was like presented as like the more cutthroat, cynical one, and you would have thought like maybe the opposite from Joel, and considering what happened with his daughter. But that's one of the points, is I think he's reluctant to help this girl, and he's questioning everything throughout the episode, and it's partly because of the terrible experience he had with his daughter. So that's what's making him hesitate, I think, and maybe not caring too much at points about what happens to Ellie. He's just like, screw it at this point. And I think what's really clever about the dynamics in this episode is that Tess, who talks a tough game and puts up a lot of barriers, and a lot of it is just her. It's just who she is. Like, I don't think a lot of it is just for show, but I think she is starting to grow attached to Ellie, and she is starting to bond with her, and she sees her as almost like where she's like a maternal mother type figure, and so it's actually her who's like defending this idea of we've got to keep going, we've got to like take Ellie and do what's right, and it's actually Joel who's questioning it, where he's the one who's constantly questioning, like, she's gonna get infected at some point. This is like a worthless mission, is what he's almost saying, because like they're talking about when she was bit before, and it turned out to be nothing. And later on in the episode, when they're attacked by these creatures, she's bitten again. And right before the end of the episode, you see Joel just looking at her arm a lot and focusing on it, and he talks to Tess about it. And Tess is the one who's just like defending this and just saying, can't you look at the positives for once? Can't you just accept then we might actually win this, and there is hope? And she just wants to keep moving forward and carry on with the mission. Now, because of the twist and where the episode goes at the end, some of that could be put down to that, then she does have like ulterior motives, or she has a reason for maybe feeling the way she does. But I also think a lot of it is like genuine. I think a lot of it is her looking out for Ellie and her actually caring. And because of the fate of Tess at the end of the episode, then this is a big episode, just like giving reasons and giving like motivation to Joel for actually he's got to do this now. But yeah, I did like a lot of the stuff with them like testing her and them having the private conversations where they're both arguing. It's almost like they are like the sort of symbol of parenthood in a way for Ellie, but they all have a good dynamic, and there's so much good direction and horror and tension in this episode. I like them talking about how the fungus like grow underground type thing, and they've got to, because they start seeing more people who have been infected, and they've got to like work around it. They've got to find a route around it. And I think that's one, without knowing that much about this sort of stuff, but that's one of the things that really appeals about like survival horror to like the core fans is then it's this idea of it's almost like a puzzle. You've got to come up with a strategy to get around these things and to like progress in the game and what have you. And you can sort of see how that plays out in this episode, where they've got to do that with like the fungus, and they've got to like navigate round it. I also like the touch of when they decide the coast is clear and they come outside, and it, even though it's like this dense sort of rough type dystopian landscape, there is a beauty to it. There is a beauty to how it's shot, and how there is this sense of like temporary like freedom where they haven't been outside for so long. And it's like Ellie especially, because she you know is the younger character, and yeah, just has had a very like up and down sort of life, and a lot of like toing and froing without too many chances to be a free person. So they do enjoy the outside, but it's short-lived. And I like how there's just stuff hinted at where you get like the suggestion of a horror out there. So you do hear like these almost, I don't know, like bug type noises. Like they have a particular like bug-like sound, but they're off in the distance. And there's just little tricks that teases like a horror coming. So also the bit they go in the sewer is very good. And well, sorry, it's a museum, but it's like, yeah, it's like partly underwater, and they have to go through like the water to go through things. So they're working their way out. And like at one point there's a piano which Ellie starts playing, and like you get a really good jump scare in that scene, because like a skeleton randomly, like a body, falls out from behind it, and it's a good jump out moment because Ellie's just messing about on the piano and then gets a little jump scare. And I just like the rules of all this, and how Joel is insisting you've got to be quiet from now, and you've got to be silent while we're in this bit. And he's very insistent, and she's not quite getting it. Like she's talking very quietly, probably partly to mess with them, knowing Ellie. But yeah, he's insisting you've got to stay quiet, be silent for this bit, and all this stuff just leads to great horror and great tension. So them creeping around, you've got like the fungus on the walls, and it's sort of surrounding them. It's very dark, so they've got to like creep about. It's all great suspense building and a lot of stakes on this stuff. So we build to like the main threat, which is like these other creatures, because when they find someone who's dead, Eddie mentions that's not the same sort of thing that bit me. So once again, adding a bit more intrigue to this idea that there are different kinds of infections in this story, in this world, which is like similar to real life as well. But so we get some good practical creature designs when these things come out of nowhere, because we find out then the fireflies, like a bunch of them have been infected and killed, and they just run out of nowhere, and they've got like these bug-like, quite gross-looking like effects on their face where they've been infected, and the rest of the body is human. But you get some tense action here when they're coming out of nowhere, and like the two adults have to like keep dodging and then dodging, shooting, and protecting Ellie at the same time. So that's really good stuff. But once again, when they get to like the tower and they find that the fireflies have been infected and killed, then once again Joel is like insisting we go back now, that's it, there's no hope. And Tess is very resistant, and it's like, no, we've got to keep doing that, there is nothing to go back to. And this is a good twist, but I also like it because it's Ellie that figures it out. Ellie figures out and then she's been infected, like they've got her. And that's definitely part of the reason why she's been sticking up for Ellie in the episode. Now, I still say a lot of it is down to the fact that she actually cares, and she is taking on like this sort of role as a mother. But it's partly also then having been infected and having faced up to the fact that she's now a victim, she's now a goner. Then stuff like that does make you think about the bigger picture and about other people and what you're going to leave behind. So it does bring into focus then, no, we've got to do what's right. We've got to protect this girl. And that's why she's sort of been like defending her to Joel and been insisting then that's what they do. And so it's quite the reveal, and I love, as I said, that Ellie was the one who figured it out, and we see how sad Ellie is when Tess insists and they leave her behind, and they do that, like Joel grabs her and they run off. So it's a testament to Ellie, and that she's began bonding with Tess, and that she has a sense of people and right and wrong, then she actually doesn't want to leave. She knows she's upset at the thought of leaving Tess behind, but Tess insists then Joel takes Ellie to a friend, like a couple they know, where she should be safe, and that she's got to do the right thing. And what I really like about this, because it was a surprise, because I expected Tess to be a main character for the series. I thought she would pretty much be there all the way through. So this was legitimately a surprise to me. But what I really like about it is then she goes out on a high. Like her death they really make her death count. Like it's a beautiful sort of like sacrifice and death scene where she stands up and does the right thing. She accepts what's going to happen, and she makes sure that they get out of there, and that she helps them in death, because she sacrifices herself to like the infected fireflies who come after her. But at the same time as she's being killed off, she drops the lighter and lights the place up and blows it up. So she's doing something good in sacrificing herself as well. So it's a good example of how, even though it's only been 2 episodes, we've had enough time to really care about the character, get to know her, and it makes her sacrifice something else. And Anna Torvin, who's a really good actress, I think she's great in this episode. And again, even though it's only been 2 episodes, the first episode was like pretty much feature length, so we sort of got to know her quite a bit in that one, and then even more in this episode. So really good stuff, really good end to the episode, and it sets up things nicely for the rest of the series moving forward. And yeah, sort of interesting. Then you've got different lengths for like the episodes. I noticed that online this week. Then like they do jump about lengthwise. It's sort of funny because I know the last episode is probably the shortest. Like I think I saw it was 43 minutes long, but then there's at least one other episode that then was like 70 plus minutes. I think the next one is 70 plus minutes. So it says something that they're really flexible in how much time they're giving each episode, and it's just what the story needs in their mind to tell like a proper story and do things right. But great episode once again, and a really strong ending to the episode. A great way for Tess to go out, and definitely leaves a lasting impact. So that's The Last of Us episode 2 for this week. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe as always. Share me out on social media, and quite a busy time for TV on this channel for new TV. There's some other new stuff I'm going to be covering. I'm going to be covering The Wolfpack. I'm going to do a watch of that on a pilot stream tomorrow. And I'm also going to cover the first episode of Extraordinary. So look out for those reviews coming up. And I will, of course, return next week with more from The Last of Us. Let me know your thoughts on this episode, guys. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.